Oh, you feel good. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to acknowledge the QM team for making this the largest professional course. Thank you, guys. Let me see if I can remind you of some things that are worth noticing. One of the mini courses that sometimes gets overlooked is creating definition. And this is a mistake because it does suggest some important data. Maybe you'll want to take another look at it. When I use the words define or definition, I'm talking about the outline, shape, or the form of something. Now, it can be a single object in a single moment, which is how we usually think of it, or it can be an event containing many objects that interact over a period of time, like a football game. Or it can be a change of sensation over a period of time, like a sound or a smell. It's something that's separated from the background either by having a beginning and an end, or by having edges, or by both. There's a passage in Genesis that has always amazed me. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and the earth was without form and void. What does something look like if it's without form and void? How would you describe it? Or you could say, well, it didn't have any shape and there was nothing there. Now, the only things that fit that definition are nothing and pure beingness. Now, it's not really a big jump to imagine that every nothing is part of the same nothing. It takes a little more thought to imagine that every being is part of the same beingness. But according to Genesis, God didn't just happen upon this big lump of stuff that he fashioned into the earth. He defined it from what? From his being. He put in a few days' work, 7 according to the story, and he defined a few things. He defined day and night, dry land and the sea, and all of the animals and plants. Now, it doesn't matter to me if you believe or disbelieve the Judeo-Christian story of creation. But it does illustrate, the story illustrates, a fundamental and largely secret power of source beingness. It has the ability to define something out of itself. And Genesis goes on to say, and God created great whales. No form, nothing, and then poof, a whale. Just like that. Now we each have the power to do that in our minds. And apparently God had the power to do it in the physical universe. Either that or the physical universe is God's mind. Now, there are at least three ways that you can define things. You can define things by copying the edge of something that already exists. You just see it as it is without making it something that it's not. And that's the process that we call counting objects. Second, you can alter the edges of something into something new, and that's creative remodeling. And that's not as powerful or courageous as creating out of the self, but it is on the same path. And the last way you can define something is to do it deliberately, starting with a no thing that is without form or substance. And if there's no form or substance to start with, the only thing that is there to build with is you. So you're going to have to put some of yourself into what you create. You're going to put in some of your time and essence. You turn your time and essence into something. Now, if you follow Genesis, that's what God did. He turned some of his time and essence into a universe. That's a magnitude of creation that I can't even imagine. But we do the same thing in our minds on a much smaller scale. When beings create minds, mental universes, they put themselves into them. Pure awareness, pure beingness is void and without substance. But through some magic of creation, it defines the various structures of a mind from itself, out of itself. Mind is created out of being. And so you're playing out your own Genesis as you define, label, and sort the events of your life. You're turning your time and essence into thoughts, emotions, memories, and beliefs. And in every thought, emotion, memory, or belief, either conscious or subconscious, there is a little bit of you. The pure awareness, you, is scattered in all the bits and pieces that make up your consciousness. Now, in the same way, life force or the divine is distributed throughout the universe. And a portion of this life force is distributed to you, and you distribute it throughout your consciousness. That which is above is the same as that which is below. So the phrase, putting yourself into your work, now takes on a whole new meaning. You not only define a mind for every identity that you assume, you also define the identity. Now, on Avatar, we create and discreate at the level of dominant mind. Excuse me. In Wizards, we create and discreate at the level of identity. In the definition mini course, we talk about edges. Edges are where the action is. Edges are where the mind of your individual identities meet. So, self-sabotage, internal conflict, indecision happen along these edges. And the edges are subject to change, but you have to assume ownership of the bordering definitions before you can remove the edge. Property lines are edges. If you own both pieces of property, you can discreate the property line. Otherwise, there is always an edge between the properties. Now, the Avatar version of Genesis goes like this: define, label, sort. First, you mark the edge of something. Then you decide what the something within the edges means. And then you sort it into a category. Now, if you removed all the edges from your mind, and I'm speaking metaphorically, you would be an extra-dimensional presence. And that's a very high state of being, a wizard. If you want to study more about edges, read the definition mini course. And if you want to learn how to step over edges, do the Wizards course. Now, creating and discreating definitions is a skill. And you wouldn't expect to develop a skill, use it once, and then throw it away. So the prize of life isn't to become undefined awareness, nor is it to become fixed attention in human consciousness. The prize of life is to learn to pass back and forth between these conditions, from a dimension of consciousness into a dimension of beingness, from a defined dimension into an undefined dimension. The route in is the path of Avatar. The route out is the path of Buddha. The path of Avatar consists of labeling, defining, and sorting. The path of the Buddha consists of experiencing, owning, and discreation. Now, from a cosmic view, all of the operations of life can be summarized into 6 activities with their attendant rewards and difficulties. Define, label, sort, experience, own, discreate. And the journey is one that you have to take. And you'll either walk through it by learning to do these operations deliberately, or if you get stuck, death will eventually send you back to do defiance. Learning to navigate the journey deliberately is the grand prize of existence. So these abilities, defining, labeling, sorting, experiencing, owning, and discreating, are far more valuable and infinitely more durable than power, fame, or wealth. And teaching a person to travel the path in both directions, or circle the wheel with good and wise motivations, is the goal of the Avatar materials. The journey begins with defining. Some people spend a lot of time defining themselves. Who am I? And we tend to define ourselves by our actions and by the company that we keep. Who you hang out with is important. I'll bet your mother told you that. Yeah. Mine told me, in one ear, out the other. What is a limiting self-definition? Okay, listen carefully. It is saying, I can't, when you could just as truly say, I can. Now, you still have to respect reality. If you say, I can't fly by flapping my arms, that's not a limiting definition, because you cannot truly say, I can fly by flapping my arms. But if you say, I can't afford the time and money to become a wizard, that is a self-limiting definition, because you could just as truly say, I can afford the time and money to become a wizard. There are always a few people who want to persuade you to create limiting self-definitions. Every time you say, I can't, they give you a cookie. Every time you blame someone else for your troubles, they give you another cookie. And if you're not careful, pretty soon you become a fixed definition whose purpose in life is acquiring cookies. Self-limiting is defining yourself in a negative way, when you could just as well define yourself in a positive way. I once had a hobby of raising earthworms. And green beans. Well, the kind of earthworms that most people grow are called red worms, and they multiply really fast, but they only grow 3 inches long. That was a little short for me. I like a slightly longer worm. So when I read about a man who would sell me the secret for growing 6-inch long red worms, I put my $3 in an envelope and mailed it off to him. I'm going to tell you that secret here today, so have your $3 ready. Now, it seems that red worms define themselves by the company they keep. If you raise red worms with red worms, they stop growing at about 3 inches. And here's the $3 secret. If you raise them with night crawlers, which are a species of earthworm that grows 6 inches long, then the red worms grow 6 inches long too. Who you hang out with is important. Now, I think that the message that the night crawler is conveying to the red worm is this: don't sell yourself short. You're kind. The trick in defining yourself is don't paint yourself into a corner with limiting definitions. And don't become so fixed in your definition that you forget your essence, which is formlessness and void. And don't become so unfixed in your essence, which is formless and void, that you never have any fun as a definition. And being human can be enjoyable and informative. So when you're formless, abide in bliss. Bliss is an absence of disturbance. I mean, if you're formless, nothing disturbs you. And when you're being human, experience the suffering and the happiness. Just don't forget how to deliberately step over the threshold between formless and form. You see, evolving is waking up to a series of things that you can control that you weren't previously aware of. After you define something, the next logical step is to name it, label it. And then you sort the labels according to some similarity or difference. Define, label, and sort are the fundamental processes that cause consciousness to arise. Soon, possibly within this decade, we're going to go to Mars. And one of the questions that scientists hope to answer is, has there ever been intelligent life on Mars? And one of the clues that they will look for is, has anything ever been sorted? Now, if they find a pile of round rocks and it's next to a pile of flat rocks, it's a good sign that intelligence had once arisen there. Or even if they find atoms that are sorted into organic molecule chains, they at least know that elemental consciousness has existed there. So the alien life test question is really simple. Has anything been sorted? I went to a home show recently, and I was amazed to find that an entire convention hall was filled by companies that do nothing but sort closets. I mean, there were custom closet companies, closet consultants, closet specialists, big sign, let us organize your closet. You know, some people are professional definers, and some people are professional labelers, and some people obviously are professional sorters. In the closet factory had a sign, said, sorting your closet is the kind of chore that you can constantly find excuses to avoid. In fact, it's such an undertaking that it usually takes a traumatic event like losing your favorite jacket before you actually get to it. California Closets had a big sign that said, confidentiality is guaranteed. They promise not to tell anyone what they find while sorting your closet. That's probably a good thing. Easy Closet's motto is create your own space. Made me wonder if they were wizards. Wouldn't it be great if you could call somebody up to come over and sort your mind? The last place I stopped was Aunt Shirley's Closet Organizers. And they were giving a mini seminar on how to sort your closet. And their motto is, it isn't the amount of space you have, but how you use it that counts. I figured I could pick up some good ideas. In some ways, a closet is a pretty good metaphor for the mind. Aunt Shirley started her seminar with an exercise. Visualize your closet with everything organized. Is this weird? I mean, in a world in as much trouble as ours, we're using our creative powers to visualize our closets with everything organized. Step 2, according to Aunt Shirley, is take everything out of your closet and sort it into 3 piles. Things you love to wear, things you feel good in, and things that should go to the recycler. You know, it's like the Avatar ultimate process. Take out all your impressions of the universe and sort them according to the impressions you feel good with, and don't bother to recreate the rest. The nice thing about cleaning out your mind is that everything that is in there, you created. So if you throw away something you need, you just create it again. The same isn't true for your closet. So I told Aunt Shirley that I thought she was missing a pile. Here's some by-the-way advice. If you ever want to appear smarter than the other guy, you just split his categories into smaller categories. You know, if he has a category called hats, you divide his category into fancy hats and plain hats. Of course, there's no guarantee that he won't come right back with fancy hats with feathers and fancy hats without feathers. I mean, this is how intellectuals fight. And it's not the kind of debate that usually leads to harmony, but it does occasionally generate more understanding of a subject. But more often you get into people who divide things up in so many categories that there's no functional reason for that minute of a distinction. So the pile I thought Aunt Shirley was missing is things that might come in handy someday. Have you ever saved anything because it might come in handy someday? Me too. Now, mind-wise, if you save something that might come in handy someday, like an injustice or an insult or a sacrifice or a trauma, that really is inefficient use of your mental energies. It's just adding another element to the definition that you're already a little stuck in. Who am I? I'm the person who wouldn't ever do to you what you've done to me. I'm the person who's going to wait for an opportunity to get even. These aren't useful definitions. There's a crab that lives along the Great Barrier Reef that glues all sorts of trash to its shell for camouflage. And the problem is they don't seem to know when to stop. And after a while, they look like little junk piles, and they're very easy to find. So not only is their camouflage compromised, but because they got all this stuff sticking to them, they're not very fast either. So mind-wise, saving something that might come in handy someday, even if you forget what part of your definition you glued it to, just ends up slowing you down. That's why processes that free attention or coax confession or promote forgiveness free you up. Anyway, the first closet company that markets a self-organizing closet is going to make $1 million. You just sew a little digital label in everything, and an optical scanner reads it as you throw it in the closet. And then the closet reconfigures itself automatically so that the right hanger or box or drawer just appears and the item is automatically stored. That would really make a closet operate like your mind. Wouldn't that be slick? Minds will self-organize if we let them. The problem is we don't let them. We keep placing resistance and judgment on our experiences and sending all of the stuff that we're unwilling to label or sort, send it way to the back. And it's dark back there. And it's easy to forget about them, but they're still using up your space. And they're still part of you. So take a lesson from Aunt Shirley. It isn't the amount of mind you have, but how you use it that counts. And when our minds run out of space, we think and do the same thing over and over. Now, the reason that some people become buried in definitions is because definitions have an inertial quality about them. Inertia says that something stays the same until an outside force acts to change it. You know, a body at rest tends to stay at rest. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. A creation defined tends to stay defined until an outside force acts to change it. How do you change or discreate a definition? Well, first you have to experience it. Then you have to own it. And then you can let the definition go. It's a lot easier to explain than it is to do. You have to say, and truthfully mean it, I created this. Now, since it is in your consciousness, no matter how carefully you copied it from reality, even if you were forced to copy it, or even if someone persuaded you to copy it, or even if someone tricked you into copying it, it's still yours. I mean, the copies are yours. The event is over. The only thing left are your copies. Your copies. I mean, you're not shy because kids picked on you. You're shy because you keep looking at your copy of kids picking on you. So you own this copy. You realize it belongs to me. And you practice owning it. You can make it a little bigger, a little smaller, a little more emotional, a little less emotional, a little brighter, run it backwards, turn it upside down, and finally just turn it off. And you can turn it off because it belongs to you. And nobody else can turn off your mental definitions of who you are, what your story is, or where you're headed. You're the only one who can do that. And it all begins with defiance. Now you may start off, defining rocks, trees, distant mountain. But hang around for a while and you'll be defining planets, solar systems, and universes. Who you hang out with is important. Let me end with a quotation that I translated from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is a little advice that is read to the departing soul who is about to make a journey from form to formlessness. Dear companion, may you recognize that the fearful thoughts and sorrowful visions that appear to you are merely definitions in your own consciousness. Thank you.
Explore and understand the nature of being, its creative abilities, and the nature of definitions. Define better living conditions for yourself and for all creatures with the Definition Mini-Course. Ask an Avatar Master or visit theavatarcourse.com.